Hi there, I'm Jason Ross with Rouche PAC, and I am very happy to be speaking today with Ray McGovern, a multi-decade veteran of the CIA, co-founder of VIPS, the Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity, and we're going to be talking about Russia, Trump, Putin, and the direction of the U.S. government. So first off, as setting the stage, ever since Trump was elected, and especially since his inauguration, there's been a growing chorus of claims about Vladimir Putin putting Trump in office by directing the election, and of even directing Trump's policy, that in effect, Vladimir Putin is running the United States government. Mm-hmm. So first off, is this true?
Well, if it is, then I don't know anything about Russia or the Soviet Union. I was counting up the years that I've been immersed in Russian studies. It goes back 59 years when I decided to major in Russian, got my graduate degree in Russian, taught Russian, was the head of the Soviet foreign policy branch at CIA, briefed presidents on Gorbachev. I like to think I learned something about how Russian leaders look at the world. Now, when I heard this meme going around that Vladimir Putin clearly preferred Donald Trump, my notion was, well, here's Vladimir Putin sitting with his advisors, and he's saying, that Trump fellow, he's not only unpredictable, but he's proud of it. He brags about it, and he lashes out strongly at every slight, whether it's real or imagined. Oh, this is just the guy I want to have on his finger on the nuclear codes across the ocean. It boggles the mind that Vladimir Putin would have had any preference for Donald Trump. Okay, that's aside from the fact that everyone, and that would include Vladimir Putin unless he's clairvoyant, knew that Hillary was going to win. Mm-hmm. Okay, so just to pursue this thing very briefly, if the major premise is that Vladimir Putin and the terrible Russians, they wanted Trump to win, then you have a syllogism. Therefore, they tried to help him. Therefore, they did all kinds of... But if you don't accept that major premise, the whole syllogism falls apart. And I don't accept that major premise. I think that, well, Putin said himself, I don't have any preference. And I didn't have any preference. I happened to be in Germany during the election, in Berlin. Mm-hmm. It was exciting because everybody, the German anchors didn't know what to say, didn't know what to make of it. And, my German friends were saying, we have a German expression here, the choice between Trump and Hillary Clinton is eine Wahl zwischen Pest und Cholera. Okay, now that means it's a choice between plague and cholera.
Uh-huh.
So I said, I kind of agree. That's why I not only voted for Jill Stein, but was proud to. On the environment, on all the major issues, she had it right. The others did not. So that's the way I looked at it. I kind of think that's probably the way Putin looked at it. And when he said, I don't have any preference, I think he probably meant that he didn't have any preference. So that syllogism falls down, Now, again, I'm Vladimir Putin here, and I'm saying, well, it looks like Hillary's going to win. It looks, pretty sure she's going to win. So why don't I hack into her mechanism there in the Democratic National Committee, and if I get caught, well, she may be angry with me, but what's to lose? I don't think so. Putin is a very cautious fellow, and if he thought Hillary's going to win, like the rest of us did, the last thing he would want to do is hack into their DNC apparatus and be caught, because it would likely be caught, and have an additional grievance for Hillary to advertise against them. So it falls down on logic alone. Now, luckily, you mentioned Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. We are the beneficiary of a membership whose expertise in intelligence matters just won't quit. This includes 4 former high officials in the National Security Agency, retired, and one of whom devised all these collection systems that NSA is still using. His name is Bill Binney. Now, he and I are very close. He writes for us, and he helps me write things. And what he has said from the outset, and this is 5 months ago, okay, that this could not be a hack. It had to be a leak. And for your listeners or your viewers, a hack goes over the network.
You're speaking of the DNC?
Yeah, I'm talking
materials?
about hacking. The Russians, good, thanks for interrupting. The Russians are accused, of course, of hacking into the Democratic National Committee emails, and they're also accused of surfacing the Podesta emails. Okay. Now, Bill says, look, I know this network. I created pretty much the bones of it. And I'm free to talk about it. Why? Well, here are the slides that Ed Snowden brought out, okay? Here are the trace points, the trace mechanism, and there are hundreds in the network. And so everything that goes across the network, Ray, I know this is hard for you to believe, and you're looking at me real strange, but everything, you know where it starts, and you know where it ends up. Everything. So if this was a hack, NSA would know about it. NSA does not know about it. Matter of fact, when the CIA and the FBI said we have high confidence, that the Russians did this, NSA, which is the only real agency that has the capability to trace these things, so we only have moderate confidence. Okay, so NSA doesn't have the information. Now, if they had the information, I'm pretty sure they would release it because this is not rocket science. Now, we also know that with respect to the computers at the DNC, for some reason, they jealously guarded them. And when the FBI said, well, you want us to investigate this? Well, hello, we got to get into your computers for what they call the forensics, right? Oh, no. The DNC, for whatever reason, said, no, we have our own company called CrowdStrike. They're really good, and among companies, they're the most, and they'll do it. So the FBI never had direct access to the machinery, to the computers, okay? And James Comey, 10 days ago, when he had to talk about this at the House Intelligence Committee hearing, it was so painful to watch him. He said, "Oh, we never really did get access to those computers. No, we had to depend on the forensics of CrowdStrike." Now, granted, it's better to have direct access to the forensics, but that's all we could do. Now,
I guess that didn't stop them from having high confidence, though, huh?
Well, no, high confidence. That's the thing. Jason, the intelligence community, and particularly the FBI and the CIA, had been so politicized that when Obama and John Brennan, his sidekick, the head of the CIA, said, we have to do this, we have to blacken Trump before the election, we have to even try to see if we can subvert enough electoral college members so that they won't vote for him, and then after he was confirmed as president, they're still working against him. So, going back to what we know, when was the first leak? Well, the first big leak, and that was the emails of the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton. That was 2 days before the Democratic National Convention in July. Wow. This was a big shock. Bernie Sanders had just kind of caved in, but they still had to explain this. I mean, the content of these emails, and maybe your audience doesn't know this, showed pure and simple that Hillary Clinton and Wasserman Schultz and the top 5 people from the National Committee, the Democratic National Committee, who quit immediately. That tells you something, right?
Right. Once the emails came out,
they orchestrated the primary campaign and other deals to cheat. I mean, there's no way around it. To cheat Bernie Sanders out of the nomination. That's clear from the content.
Yeah.
So what did they do? I wasn't a fly on the wall, but I can see Hillary gathering her council of war here, and she's on, what about this? And one fellow says, I know what we could do. I got a good idea. Well, blame it on the Russians. Somebody else said, well, but it wasn't the Russians. It was WikiLeaks. Somebody else said, well, that's a twofer. we hate them with equal hatred, we'll say that WikiLeaks are working for the Russians. Okay, that was 2 days before the convention. Somebody else says, well, what would the rationale be? Come on, the Russians clearly want Trump to win. This is, and how about the major media? The major media really want Hillary to win. You got it, man. We got the major media in on this. We got it really wired. And if you watch the coverage, since the WikiLeaks leak 2 days before the Democratic National Convention, and for the weeks after, it was all about not the content. Did Hillary steal this nomination? No. Nobody knew about the guy. It was all about who did it. It was the Russians. How'd the Russians do it? Was it Wiki? How'd they get the Wiki? Okay. And part two, of course, and of even more importance, there are a lot of people who make a lot of money on tension in the world, on arms sales. And peace is not good for business. Peace is very bad for business, right? And so if you can stoke up tensions with Russia, if you can make believe Russia's going to attack the Baltic countries, give me a break. Have you been in the Baltic countries? I have. I don't know whether they would attack the Baltic countries. So all this is very artificially stoked up. So you have a major threat. If you have a president who comes in and says, I think a decent relationship with the Russians would be better than what we have now. Whoa! Let me be clear. Do the Russians hack? Of course they hack. Everybody hacks. The Chinese hacked 4 million records out of the Office of Personal. They've got my retirement records, my health record, everything, all right? So everybody hacks. The question is, did somebody put a little thumb drive into the machines in the Democratic National Committee? Somebody who maybe have seen the emails, say, my God, here I'm a bright, bushy-tailed young Democrat, and I said, man, somebody's got to know about how Hillary, stole this nomination, and downloaded and somehow got it to WikiLeaks. Well, it's not on a network, so it had to be, technically speaking, and I'm speaking out of the experience of the NSA folks, it had to be a leak and not a hack. The other thing is, and this is of rather good consequence, the President of the United States, outgoing Barack Obama, got up at a press conference on the 18th of January. And addressing this problem, he said, now, I just want you to know, and this is a quote, okay? The conclusions of the intelligence community with respect to how the Russian hacks got to WikiLeaks, those conclusions are inconclusive. The latest release from this Vault 7 tranche of documents that WikiLeaks has, they pointed out that the CIA, in its own cyber division created by John Brennan under Obama, has the tools that are necessary to obfuscate the origin of a hack. Obfuscate is the word used in these documents. Again, people say, well, you believe Julian Assange? I say, no, I don't believe anybody. I believe documents. Have you seen Julian Assange massage or adulterate documents? No, I haven't. So here they are. And they showed that the CIA developed this capability, not only to obfuscate, but also to make it very much appear that this or that hack was Chinese, Russian. There are 5 languages: Chinese, Russian, Arabic, Farsi, and Korean. That's interesting, isn't it? The NSA had been working on this kind of technology for 15 years, okay? We know what the technology involves. It involves 700 million lines of code. Now, just to give you an example, one line of code costs $25. Do the math, okay? Now, James Comey could have got access to those machines. I mean, they get access to just about everything else. He should have insisted, look, we want the forensics ourselves, right? Now, even then, my NSA colleagues tell me, it would have been very difficult for the FBI to figure out how these hacks were disguised as hacks from Russia,
right.
unless they went to NSA and said, taking you over, then you would have NSA monitoring the same systems that they let the CIA borrow to do this stuff. So you got the whole thing convoluted like that. What these very intelligence officials persuaded everybody is that the Russians were behind this because it takes a state actor to do this kind of thing, and there's no pro-state actor like the KGB, the GRU, the Russian, okay.
Yeah.
So these are real pros, right? And yet they leave behind these telltale signs like, oops, they forgot they left some Cyrillic in there, Russian alphabet. Oh, right. My God. And worse still, Felix Edmunovich appears somewhere in there. Now, who's Felix Edmunovich? Americans don't know that, but that's Dzerzhinsky, first head of the Cheka, which was the predecessor of the KGB. So somebody leaves it just in case.
They must have been working on it for a long time, huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah, working on it for 50 years. So in case you missed the Cyrillic, you say, oh, who's Felix Edmunovich, So, I mean, it was pretty amateurish. Whoever, it would be funny if it weren't so damn serious, because they're getting away with it. And the irony is that these oversight committees in the House and Senate,
right.
Well, for a long time they were called the oversight committees. Now they need to be called the overlook committees,
Right.
They don't oversee anything. The question about this latest, that the CIA had these capabilities, and in case anybody's not sure, I believe it's far more likely that John Brennan, the head of the CIA, was responsible for those Russian hacks than the Russians were. And I think that's a stretch of imagination. Stuxnet, okay? That's a weird sort of operation. That was to buy off the Israelis so they wouldn't attack Iran and get us into a war. Buy off the Israelis? What year? 2009? But wasn't it in 2007 that the intelligence community found out that Iran was not working on a nuclear weapon? Well, yeah. Was that a kind of wishy-washy decision? No, it was unanimous. Moderate, no, high confidence. Just some of the agencies? No, all 16. It was the most, it's the only intelligence estimate that I know of, and I know of a lot of them now, and I used to chair a couple, that played a huge role in preventing a war. The war that Bush and Cheney had planned for 2008, okay? So that was on the record, okay? It was reinforced and re-articulated every year by the head of national intelligence. And yet, somebody said, well, we need to buy off the Israelis by destroying centrifuges
right.
in Iran by this Stuxnet. So cyber warfare started with the Stuxnet. Were the intelligence communities informed about that? No. Was the president? My guess would be no. But, John Brennan pretty much had carte blanche, whether it was to fly drones to kill Americans or whatever. And the most interesting comment that's come out over the last couple of weeks is from the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Chuck Schumer, who's talking with Rachel Maddow.
Right.
And he says, I thought Trump was a really smart guy, but he's done something very foolish. And Rachel said, oh, what's that? He says, well, he's taken on the CIA. Now, this is Schumer, okay? And the CIA has 6 ways to Sunday to get at you, okay? So, whereas I thought Trump was a reasonably bright guy, a really good businessman, I'm not so sure anymore because he's done something very foolish, end quote. Now, what does Rachel say? Well, if you were Rachel, if I were Rachel, I think I would have said, Senator Schumer, are you saying that the President of the United States should be afraid of the CIA? Is that what you're saying?
Right.
What she did say was, oh, well, I guess we have to go to break now. Oh my God, They got 6 ways to Sunday. That's an old Bronx expression. I come from the Bronx. 6 ways to Sunday. That means, 6 days of the week till Sunday to get at you, right?
Right.
So So that was part and parcel of all this. They're afraid. And Trump's dilemma now is, now that it's known how all this went down, and specifically how he and his people were monitored, what's he going to do?
Right. And that brings us to the article that you co-authored with Bill Binney a few days ago. You called it "The Surveillance State Behind Russiagate." And you point out that there's certainly more to this than upset Democrats who were complaining about their loss of an election that they thought was guaranteed to them, but that, as this Chuck Schumer quote indicates, there exists a deep state. I mean, there are intelligence agencies, there are people in these institutions that have an idea about what direction the United States policy ought to be. And if Trump doesn't see eye to eye on that, well, they've got ways of ensuring that he'll follow those directions or to unseat him from office. You wrote in this article that the choice on Trump's part of whether to take on these institutions or live in fear of them will determine whether there is a future for our constitutional republic.
The Senate Intelligence Committee report, 4 years in the making, very, very assiduous young people looking into what the CIA did in regard to torture and this kidnapping and so forth, relying exclusively on CIA documents, cables from the field to headquarters, memos, CIA documents. Now, how'd they get them? There was a little bargain between Panetta, when he was head of the CIA, and the Senate committee. So they had the wherewithal on them. And if people will remember, in December of 2014, the most heinous kinds of torture, rectal hydration for no real reason, other things of terrible, terrible consequence were revealed. And worse still, it was revealed that John Brennan and the others were lying through their teeth when they said, yeah, this was bad, but it worked. It gave good intelligence out. It was shown from their cables themselves that it wasn't. So, why am I mentioning this? Well, Dianne Feinstein, to her credit, faced into this. Why? Well, she's not known for her courage, in my view, but she had these 4 or 5 young investigators. I think it was sort of a grandmotherly instinct, She saw how hard they had worked, and she saw the heinous nature of what they uncovered. And so she pressed ahead, and there was a battle royale between Dianne Feinstein, using her constitutional prerogative, and John Brennan, head of the CIA. What did he do? He hacked. He hacked into Dianne Feinstein's computers. Right.
Yeah.
Then he says, oh, I didn't hack. And then later, like Clapper, he said, oh, well, yeah, we did hack. So, although Dianne Feinstein had a very big supporter named Harry Reid, minority leader in the Senate, John Brennan had a far more powerful supporter. His name was Barack Obama. And Barack Obama joined with John Brennan to prevent the publication of these, the revelation of these heinous details about torture, and the fact that torture didn't work, as John Brennan and others had said. He worked really hard to prevent that. We came to the point what Dianne Feinstein said to the president, look, I have a member here, Mark Udall. He lost, He lost his re-election. He's got nothing to lose now. And he feels really strongly about the need to get this executive summary of the torture report out. So, here's your choice. You let us release this in redacted form, it's okay, or Mark Udall reads it from the floor of the Senate. And only then did Obama say, oh, darn, okay, call up John Brennan. Well, we gotta release it. Now, what does that tell you? What does that tell you about the hold that John Brennan has over the president? These were CIA documents, things we need to know about what happened, what went down. We need to know that torture didn't work and that they were lying through their teeth. Obama was told early on that he needed to realize that the deep state was around, and that he needed to trim his sails accordingly. And when I say early on, I mean as his campaign for president was just beginning. And I'll finish with this on this line. In May, Senator Obama said, there's this plan there's this legislation to hold the giant telecoms harmless for snooping on all Americans, getting
Right.
all the stuff. And I'm against it. That would be terrible. That's against the Fourth Amendment. In June, John Brennan joined Obama's campaign. We're talking 2008 now, okay, real early on, okay? 1st of July, if memory serves, 2008, Obama says, I think I changed my mind on that. I don't think we should blame or hold the giant telecoms accountable. I think we should hold them harmless. And I'm saying to myself, whoa, hang on here. Bells go off here. Here's a guy that was against holding them harmless. I didn't put two and two together at the time, but I later learned that Brennan joined that campaign right in the middle of this. And then he changes his mind. So why would a senator running for president change his mind? Well, there are political reasons, but there are also reasons where Brennan obviously had a lot of influence and changed his mind and said, look, Mr. President, you got to play ball with NSA here. We can't take them on because they have 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you, And that's the way it's been with Obama. And that's why Brennan was allowed to do all the stuff he's done in Syria, kill Americans with drones, all manner of other things, and get away with it.
The story that you've painted, the picture that you've painted, really gives us something that we need to do. Because if this is to be fought out only among the institutional layers, it's a tough fight. It's something where if people are aware, as we're able to make known to the population more generally that this is a fight, that this isn't about Democrats versus Republicans, that this is really much more about the deep state versus the potential of elected government to determine our course, that the threats of, say, blackmail via the FBI or other intelligence agencies, the dossiers that no doubt exist on these elected officials.
As for citizens, I would emphasize that this whole business about, let's take when Edward Snowden came out with his revelations in June of 2013. What happened? Well, people say, well, isn't this interesting? Everything. They intercept everything. Emails, telephone. Wow. Luckily, I have nothing to hide, So we asked a fellow from the Stasi, okay? Stasi is the old East German Secret Service, right? Wolfgang Schmidt, his real name, by the way, a Stasi colonel, is interviewed. And one of the Americans says, now, Wolfgang, what do you think about people in America who say they have nothing to hide, And Schmidt says this, this is incredibly naive. Everyone has something to hide. You don't get to decide what they get on you. The only way to prevent it from being used against you is to prevent it from being collected in the first place. I mean, beautiful, If they collect it,
right,
they can use it.
Right.
I asked Colleen Rowley. Colleen was the counsel of the Minneapolis division of the FBI. She was the one that wrote memos to the director saying, this is how we screwed up on 9/11. She's got guts that won't quit as well. I said, Colleen, Robert Kennedy, my God. Robert Kennedy, Attorney General, authorizing the FBI to try to persuade Dr. King to commit suicide? How do you figure that, Colleen? And she said, Ray, wiretapping, J. Edgar Hoover. Robert Kennedy would know. J. Edgar Hoover has lots of information about all those pretty girls that he and Jack used to invite to the White House pool and all that stuff. And she's imagining this, but the reality is that Robert Kennedy would know that J. Edgar Hoover had lots of material to blackmail not only him, but his big brother, okay? That's big. What Edward Snowden said about turnkey tyranny, if you have these kinds of information, private information about everyone, including the president and Michael Flynn and all his associates, back in October, November, and December, well, you have the ability, if not to win the election, then to at least destroy or make these folks seem beholden to the Russians of all places, and disarm the attempts that Trump wants to make vis-a-vis Russia. Now, I have to tell you that I am against everything Trump stands for internally. I think he's not only unqualified to be president, but all his instincts are terrible. Okay, so put that on the record. He's right about Russia. If he were to say to Vladimir Putin, look, I don't think we need to put more troops in the Baltic states or Poland, so why don't I pull out those troops and you pull out the troops on the other side? Is it a deal? I'm morally certain Putin says, it's a deal. Now what would that mean? That would mean that what Pope Francis, to his credit, called the blood-drenched arms traders would lose out big time. Peace, bad for business. Tension, very good for business. So there's a lot at stake among very, very powerful people. And if Trump can make this stick, this is not a puny little incidental issue. It's a transcendent one. I was more afraid that Hillary would bring us to a nuclear confrontation than Putin. Take my word for it. I've looked at what the Russians have done. I looked at the heyday of the relationship with the United States and Russia, which goes back to October of 2013, when Putin pulled Obama's chestnuts out of the fire by persuading the Syrians to destroy or have destroyed all their chemical weapons on U.S. ships, okay? Nobody knows about that, the United States. But the neocons, the people who want to create a bad atmosphere in relations between the United States and Russia, they know about it. It only took them 6 months. 6 months to mount a coup on Russia's doorstep in Kiev, in Ukraine. And that's where all this trouble started. Russians accused of invading Ukraine, not true. Of invading Crimea, not true, So all that stuff was artificially pumped up. It's just as easily deflated. And Trump, if he's willing to do that, well, that would be a biggie. So, being right 2 times a day is better than never being right.
Well put.
I think.
Great. Well, thanks very much, Ray.
You're most welcome. Thanks for asking. It's very rare that I get a chance to review what I've observed, and it's just a pity that we're kind of barred from what's called the mainstream media.
Well, we've got our own job to do.
Thanks.
Thank you.